All right, this is a really good question, but in order to answer this question, I want to dive into my perception of spirit guides and the miscommunications between that and guardians. It's also really important too. What I say, take it with a grain of salt. But first, let's get rid of these really dry lips. So my experiences will be coming from a decades long worth of experience in psychic development circles and conversations with people with different backgrounds, reading material, you get the point. So in my perspective, spirit guides are distinct versions of ourselves, like basically echoes of ourselves. They represent different archetypes. The best way I can describe this is when I was opening up myself to spirituality, my intuition, so forth, people would have conversations about their spirit guides around me. And the way that the verbiage was, it was like they were different and their own entity versus a different entity being that of a spirit guide. And that really didn't resonate with me personally. I always felt like I was one with my spirit guides, but I was a different version of my spirit guides. And then later on, I saw another video on YouTube that really resonated with me. Now we'll get to guardians here in a second. So think of yourself in different versions of yourself in different dimensions and parallels. The best way I can describe it is like in Avatar, Aang. I know that he was reincarnated, and every time he would go into his meditation mode, he would see different versions of himself, but he would use that for guidance. Very similar to what I said earlier, echoes, not necessarily reincarnations, but different echoes of yourself in different dimensions. But if you're still with me, let me now dive into a different form of spirit guides. Different versions of yourself don't necessarily have to look exactly like how you look today and act like you. There can be different versions. Like the best example is Aang. There are so many different versions of Aang's soul. Again, it may not be the best way, but visually, I hope you're following me here. It's also very important to note that spirit guides do not tell you what to do. They guide you. They act like guiding forces. You have to think about it. Your higher self and spirit guides are in a whole different vibration. We're all one, right? So that being said, there's a distinction between that and guardians. Because anything can give you advice, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's coming from your spirit guide or this higher self from a different frequency, a higher frequency. So guardians, people confuse that as like maybe their grandmother who is guiding them through this. Sure, they're your guardian. They're here to protect you. They know you. They're your grandmother. However, we also have to consider that there's these souls like a grandparent or a loved one. They don't automatically just pass away and they're qualified to be. Have to work through these inner workings of letting go of baggage that is earthbound, if you will. But again, in order to connect with your spirit guides, explore different perspectives. It may be different than how you feel about what I just said about spirit guides. Do your research. What resonates with you? So one great way to talk to your guides is through using oracle cards or tarot or a divination tool, if you will. But make sure that you are in a very clean space, neutralized space. Make sure that you clean your space, that you've meditated, and that you have protected your space. Now, if you want to meet your spirit guide for the first time, this is what I recommend. There are plenty of great guided meditation on YouTube on how to meet your spirit guides, but just remember something. It may be uncomfortable for some people. Spirituality is very personal. I also recommend talking to your spirit guides, not just on like when you need them and like a fear-based basis, if that makes sense. Kind of like when people pray, they pray with like a fear, like, okay, I need help, I'm praying. Don't think of it like that. Because the minute that you do that, there's going to be a gap between now you and your spirit guide, and really understanding on a very truthful, loving way of what you're trying to communicate and what they're trying to communicate to you as well. So I hope this helps, and let me know if there's any other questions that you have.